What is up, guys? So we are back with our e-commerce in Golang backend project series. And in this video, we're going to tackle the models for this project. So models is important because that's the structure on how you're going to store the data that you're going to be working with, right? So head over to your models folder that we had created in the last video and the models.go file. You want to start with writing package models. So this whole package that we're creating right now, the whole file is going to be called models. You know the structure already. We're going to import a couple of things. I will need the time package and you'll soon see why. And I'll also need the mongodb.org Mongo driver. For the exact name, you can obviously head over to the documentation for MongoDB drivers, right? I always keep it open on my computer. Whichever library that I'm using, I always keep the documentation open. By the way, what I have done is, I know I told you before that I usually use a feature by Windows called WSL to run Ubuntu inside my Windows laptop. Okay, that's what I'm doing here. So this VS Code is running inside the Ubuntu instance inside Windows, right? So Windows has a Hyper-V hyper virtualization feature. It's called WSL. And inside that, I'm running this Visual Studio Code right now. So I was usually against installing a lot of extensions because I had to keep jumping between different instances of Ubuntu, like 20.04, 18.04, 16.04, depending on the type of projects that I was working on. But I've kind of decided that for this project, I'm going to stick to 20.04. And so you can see here on top that I'm using WSL Ubuntu 20.04. And this is why I thought, why not just install the extensions anyway? So the top 2-3 extensions for Golang that help me with the syntax, that help me with errors, linting and all that, I've installed them. If you want an exact list, I can put that in the comments below. If you want, you can put a comment saying that you want that list. But otherwise, if you just search for Golang and the extensions for Visual Code, you will get the first 3-4. Just install them; they'll be fine, right? So I've installed them, and it's giving me all these issues. So you'll see a lot of people, they tell me to use extensions, and I usually don't use them because of this problem, because I use VS Code inside that and I keep jumping between instances. But since I've decided on using 20.04, I'll be using extensions here, and this will be just a better experience for you because you'll be able to see and fix issues as they appear as I type, right? You can see that issue appearing there. So it's a better experience for you. So so you'll have a better experience in this video series. Anyhow, now for each collection, right? So we're going to have a user collection in our MongoDB. So we're using MongoDB in this project. So we're going to have a user collection. Collections are like tables. If you use an SQL database, you'll have tables, whereas for a NoSQL database, you'll have collections. So user collection, we'll have a struct. Now struct, by the way, I've kind of tried to change my teaching style. So I explain every single thing that I write and I type. I hope that, makes sense or that kind of engages you better. But in case you're a senior developer and you don't like this kind of a teaching style where I'm teaching everything one by one, you can go over to my more advanced project series where I don't explain much. I just show a lot of code and show a lot of building blocks and how to actually build the project quicker and faster, right? So if you're a senior developer, there are so many more projects on my channel, right, where I've shown you how to actually build a project really quickly. Anyhow, so this is your struct, and the struct, the user object, you can call it. Let's say if you're from a JavaScript background, the user object, right, is going to have ID. Struct is kind of an object, right? So you'll have ID, you'll have first name underscore name, you'll have last underscore name. So struct is like you have these data types, right, in Golang, and struct is your own data type that you can create. So even though it directly correlates with a MongoDB collection, but your struct is basically used by Golang to understand and work with the data, so that Golang understands that this is a struct and this is what those different data types are. And then you'll have your password, then you'll have your email. Now you can add or remove any of the things that you like or don't like in this struct. This is according to my taste and preference that I'm building the struct, that the user should have an email and phone number because it's an e-commerce website, right? And I want to have token to work with authentication, I want to have a refresh token, and I want to have created at and updated at, created underscore at and updated underscore at, user underscore ID. And we'll now a lot of people, they handle the cart, the user's cart in the front end. Many people handle it in the back end, but you can do both. It doesn't matter. So here I'm just showing you how to do it in the back end as well. Okay, so you have a user cart, and you want to have address details of the user. Obviously, you want to have address details, and every user also needs to have like their order status. What's happening with their order? They would like to know that. So that's why you have the order status. Okay. And then what does an e-commerce consist of? The e-commerce consists of a product, obviously. So you'll have product. Okay, so we'll say type product, which is struct. Then I'll have a product user to be able to put price and rating and image. Product and I'll have address and order. So you want to store the address, and we'll soon create the inside fields. Don't worry about that. I'm just creating from like a 10,000 feet perspective. What all do you need? You need order, because somebody will check the product and then place the order, right? And then you want to have a payment object. You want to have type payment struct. Okay. So for the product struct, let's start from product struct. Okay. So what all will it have? It'll have an ID. It'll have a name. So whenever you go to an e-commerce website, you see product names, right? You see the price of the product, the rating, and the image. So let's create that. So the first thing is going to be product underscore ID. Then you'll have product underscore name. You'll have the price, the rating, the image. Awesome. For product user, you want to have the product ID and name. I'll just copy and paste from here directly. And you'll have the price, the rating, the image. And then you want to have the address. For the address, you want to have address underscore ID, house, street, city, pin code, and order. You want to have order ID and cart. Right, so whenever you place an order, you have an order ID, you have the cart, you have ordered at, as in at what time did you order it, and then the price, discount, and payment method. All right, for payment, there are two options. You'll have either digital or you'll have COD, and these are just booleans. So if it's digital, it'll be digital is true, and or if it's cash on delivery, it's boolean cash on delivery will be true. Now, so for these two, I have written the data types, but for all the others, I've not written the data types, and we want to now start doing that. So for ID, you wanted to have primitive, which I've installed this package called primitive, and I want to have primitive dot object under ID, and first name is going to be string, last name string, right? And again, password, email, phone, token, and refresh token, all of them are strings. So all you can just simply copy and paste it quickly to save time. Okay. Now, I don't encourage copying and pasting a lot. I mean, I don't do it whenever I build some production grade application. I never copy and paste. Even if I have to copy just one single word, I don't do that. It's because when copying and pasting, your mind goes on autopilot. And at least that's what I have observed. Maybe it doesn't work like that for you, but I can tell you it works like that for everybody. I'm just saying, I'm just being politically correct, saying that maybe it doesn't work like that for you, but I know for a fact it everybody, their mind just goes on autopilot mode. They're not thinking anymore, right? They're just copying and pasting, so their mind goes in that copying and pasting mode. When your mind is in that mode, you stop checking what you're doing. You stop actually even noticing what you're doing, and you end up making so many mistakes that become really difficult to fix later on, because at that point of time you didn't even register the mistake that you were making. So it becomes a little difficult to fix. With Golang, it's not that difficult to fix actually, but if you're working with something else like JavaScript, you can't copy and paste a lot. Okay. At least for like very critical production grade applications, I don't do it. I mean, if you're comfortable doing it, you can do it, but I don't encourage it at all. So here, since we're not doing anything very critical, simple application, so I'll just copy and paste a little bit here and there, time by time. I know other YouTubers, they have a habit of copying and pasting a lot here and there. I don't, support that or encourage that a lot. So here, when you see something like this, right? This is basically a slice. So it's a very simple form of a data type that's given to us by Golang, almost like an array. You should go check it out if you don't know what a slice is. It's very important to know. And here what you're doing is you're saying that you want a slice, which is like an array, right? You want a slice of type product user. Product user is something that you've created here, right? So since we're associating every cart to a user, and the cart will have multiple products, so we have something called as a user cart, which has it's multiple slices, and then you have the product user, where we'll store the product that user is storing in his own cart. Okay, so I hope you can now link that product user, and user cart basically has multiple product users, which basically you're associating a user cart to a user. Pretty straightforward, very simple. Okay, and for address details, since every user will have an address, the address struct that we have created here, which will have address ID, house, street, city, and pin code, all of those different things. If you didn't create this struct called address, right? So this is why I create structs, right? This is why I create structs, because if you create these structs, you reduce your work, because for every single user you have to then tell Golang that every single user has house, street, city, pin code, all of that. Whereas here you can keep them modularly different, and then you can apply different rules on them. You can have different validations on them, all of that. So here all you're saying is that it's you can even have multiple address details. So since I've already defined what an address looks like, I can have multiple addresses. So I can have like a slice of addresses, right? So when I say slice of addresses, means I can have multiple addresses, and each address is like a struct, right? Each address is a struct, you can see here, which has house, street, city, and pin code. Slices and structs you need to know really well, all right? Even if you're a beginner developer, you have to know these two concepts, man. There's no excuse. You can't put comments on my YouTube video saying why did you use the struct there or a slice there? You can't do that, man. If you don't know that, then you have to check out Golang Tour website, and you have to understand what slices and structs are. By the way, I'm also coming up with a basic Golang series, so I'll cover these there also. But in case you don't know, do check it out. And for order status, you point to order. You're basically saying it's a type of order, right? Slices of order. And similarly, we'll do that for all of these, right? For product, now ID always is going to be primitive.object ID. So you just copy and paste that simply here. Similarly, you can do that for every ID. Even for address ID, you can do that. And for order ID also, you can do that. Cool. Now you want to start with product name. So product name obviously is going to be string, so you just copy and paste that string here. Product price, is going to be an integer. It's a number. Actually, you know what? For price, instead of int, you can also have uint, which means that it's an unsigned int, means that always it'll be positive. So we don't want the price to be negative, right? Even by mistake. So because that'll cost the company money if you're building an e-commerce project. So for the price, you want to have uint. And I'll keep it 64. You can read about ints and uints and strings. It's quite important to read about them and to know them. But in case you don't know these, don't worry, I'm coming up with a Golang basic series. I'll start from scratch, so you'll learn all of this from scratch. All right, this I'll keep as uint 8 and image. So image, you just store a URL. So that's going to be a string. Okay, so we'll just store the URL of the image. Okay. So I actually had set a reminder that I have to start posting these projects on GitHub, because I'm guilty of not updating my GitHub from time to time, because like I said, I jump between these different instances of Ubuntu. So I just don't remember which instance is actually connected to my GitHub account. And now GitHub has done all that OAuth and all that login, right? You can't just connect your multiple instances directly to your GitHub. You have to go through the OAuth thing, so it doesn't allow me many times. Maybe that's just a problem with my WSL. If you're having the same issue, let me know, or if you have a solution for that, let me know. But then I have to use a particular laptop, like just the Windows on this laptop or just the other laptop sometimes to upload to GitHub, because that's connected properly to GitHub now. So that's why I just procrastinate and I forget uploading things on GitHub. But I'll do that now. Moving forward, I'll ensure that it's kind of up to date. Anyhow, so the product name, again, it's just stringed, right? There's nothing fancy here. String. And rating, again, I'll keep rating as uint. So here, by the way, you know that this is just the unit to store a product for that user in the user's cart, right? So this is not like the official product. So here you can be relaxed. You don't have to like say uint 8 or all of that. So that's why here I'll just say price as int. That's all. Nothing special. Anyhow, now coming to your address. So your address will have house and street, city, pin code. All of these are strings. Just copy the string here and paste it here. Okay, I've kind of kept everything formatted. You can also do the same, like add enough spaces between these so that they all fall in the same line. Now order cart, you already know that we have been building this product user thing that we're going to use as cart, which also we have used in our user for the user cart. So it's the same thing. You just copy and paste it, or you can, if you want, you can write it from scratch. Right? So order cart is basically product user. It's a slice. Ordered at, it's a timestamp. So how do you get timestamp? You get it from the time package that I've just installed up here. And the price for the order is just int right now. Okay, but you can have as star star uint or whatever. I'm just keeping it int for now. Discount is always integer, obviously. And payment method is payment, which we have defined here already as struct. So notice that there's no slice here, so that means there won't be like multiple payment methods. Obviously, there's going to be only one payment method, which is either digital or whichever one is true with the boolean. So just make sure you do that. Now comes a very important part. You have defined these structs, which are going to be representations of collections, the various collections in your database. So you'll have a user collection, you'll have a product collection, product user collection, address, order, and payment collection. You'll have all these collections in your MongoDB database. And that's why you want a representation of that in your Golang as a struct. And struct basically is a data type that you have created on your own, which is an assembly or collection of multiple other data types that Golang already understands. So now once you assemble all these different data types that Golang already understands, you get a struct, right? So that means Golang by default now starts understanding what a user is. It has so many different data types, but all these different data types are already understood by Golang. So now Golang also understands what this whole whole struct or whole data type is that we've invented on our own. But there's a small issue here, and the issue is that Golang does not understand JSON, and MongoDB is a JSON database. And also when we work with our Postman, or however you want to call these APIs, or mostly using Postman or some tool like that, right? You're going to be working with JSON. So people coming from the JavaScript background, they assume that all languages have JSON support, but only JavaScript has JSON support because JSON is JavaScript object notation, right? All the other languages like Golang, for example, they don't have JSON support. They don't understand what JSON is. So you have to do some things to work with JSON. That means you have to tell Golang that, okay, this field called ID is going to be this type that you understand, but it's also going to be another type that you don't understand, but you need to look out for it, because in JSON, that's what it's going to look like. So this is how you define it. You put these, I think they call it backticks. Not sure. This is the button next to 1 on your number tray, number keypad, whatever you want to call it. So you have backticks. Inside backticks, you'll say JSON. And if you've worked with MongoDB, you know that underscore ID is how MongoDB stores the ID in the database. And so you'll give it a JSON, and for ID specifically, you also have to give the BSON. And now the thing is that for all of these fields, you have to do the same. So here you want to put those backticks again. For JSON, you want to say first underscore name, and you want to. Okay, so there's another layer of validation that I'll come to in a while. I won't confuse you just yet. So there's going to be another layer of validation, which I'll show you in a couple of minutes. But before that, let's do the whole JSON thing like I just did for first name and for ID for all the other fields, okay? So for last name, I want to have the same thing. I'll say JSON, and I'll say last name. Now, there are some tools that help you create these models automatically, right? So I have used these tools quite a bit in the past, and they work really well for Flutter, but for Golang, all of them, they kind of mess up quite a bit. So I don't completely depend on them. I'll show you how to use those tools, right? So here the models are still very small, and the number of data fields that we have used are still very less. So we don't have to overtly depend on them right now, but in other projects, we'll use them, and I'll show you how to use them. But even though I use them, I always kind of very carefully verify if they have output the right data for me, because they're not very reliable somehow. For Golang at least. For Flutter, they work like a charm, right? For Flutter, whenever I need to work with JSON, I create these models, they work like a charm. But for Golang, I always verify, right? So this is small, this I'll do manually, but if it's a bigger project, I'll show you how to use those automatic tools as well. So here you'll say JSON, and you'll say password, right? So I'll go a bit quick here. And here you say email, and I'll just copy and keep this so I can use it later on also. And here after email, I want to say phone. I want to say token and refresh token created at and updated at the double backticks, sorry. And you'll have created underscore at. You want to have updated and user ID. Sorry, I didn't end up using this. User underscore ID. And here you'll use user cart. We'll have to use the BSON notation as well because we are referring to other structs for these three structs. Okay, so just make sure of that. By the way, I've received a very good feedback suggestion from somebody. They said that I should include advanced or intermediate or beginner in front of every series so that everybody understands the difficulty level of that project series. And that completely makes sense, actually. I'll start doing that from now. This one that we're building right now, the e-commerce one, is kind of at the beginner level, right? That's why I'm explaining everything very properly. And the concepts that we're using also very, very simple. Nothing very complicated. We're not using any design patterns or anything like that. Okay. So similarly, right, for ID, you have product name, you'll have a price, and you'll have rating, and you'll have the image. Now, even though we've told Golang this is how it's going to look in JSON, Golang will still need some help from our side. So we'll have to do something called as marshalling and unmarshalling. And usually there's a package called encoding/JSON that helps us with this feature that gives us, marshalling and unmarshalling basically to get Golang to work with JSON. Okay, so we'll be using that. Marshalling and unmarshalling is a simple concept. I'll explain it again in my simple video series that's coming in, but I've just told you what it does, like at a basic level. So for the product user, you want to have BSON underscore ID, and here you'll have JSON product underscore name and BSON product name. For the price, you'll have price and BSON price. And for JSON, here you'll have JSON rating, BSON rating. And for the image, JSON image, JSON image. All right. Now we'll do the same for the address and order as well. For the address, you want to have JSON underscore ID. House will have JSON house name and BSON house name. For street, you will have the same street name and BSON is again street name. For city, city underscore name, and BSON would be the same as well. Now you can notice that for JSON and for BSON, what we're doing here is basically for Golang, F and N are both capital, L and N are both capital, P is capital, E is capital, right? For all of these fields. Whereas in JSON, everything is small caps, right? So whenever you send something from Postman and whenever it's getting stored in MongoDB, you'll notice that everything is small caps. Whereas when working with Golang, we have to remember that Golang understands only the full caps value for the first letter as caps value. So for pin code, again, it'll be the same. JSON pin underscore code. Cool. Now for order, you'll again start with the same BSON underscore ID. And here we'll have JSON order underscore list and BSON order underscore list. Okay. JSON ordered at and JSON ordered underscore at, and here you'll say total underscore price discount payment method underscore method. Awesome. So till now everything was straightforward and simple, and now also it'll be straightforward and simple, but I just want to show you something which you might find a little different to what you've been seeing till now. It's the validation, right? So we'll use an external package for validation, but to be able to tell it that this is how the validation is going to be, we have to define the validation here, which basically I'm saying that the first name of that user is required for sure, and there'll be some rules to it. The rule will be that it has to be minimum 2 and maximum 30 characters. Similarly, I'll define, make sure this is inside the second backtick that ends it. So validate here, again, I'll say it's required, and it'll be minimum 2 and max 30. For password, again, I'll say validate required minimum is equal to 6, and email is validate email comma required, and for phone we'll say validate required. The spacing doesn't seem correct. By the way, guys, we are following a very similar structure to what we have done in our JWT authentication tutorial, in our restaurant management tutorial. We're following a very similar pattern here in the e-commerce series, right? So if we have been following with me, it should be like very similar for you. And for all the new people here, as I'm explaining every single thing, I'm pretty sure you're also following along quite well. In case there's a gap in understanding, you can always put it in the comments below, or the faster way is you can reach out to me on LinkedIn and just send in a message. Actually, comments is also good, or if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, my link for connecting with me is always there in the description of almost all videos. So you can connect with me, and you can send me some query, and I can try and help you out. Okay, so this is what I want to show you in today's video, the model, and this is kind of the fundamental block when you build a project, right? So you have to think about the models first. You have to do this, start planning, and then you start building the rest of the things. So thanks a lot for watching, and do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I have a lot of content coming up in the basics of Golang. So all of these projects will become even easier for you to understand and follow along. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.